Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Right now, you and I are trying to navigate the high-pressure modern corporate world using brains and nervous systems that were actually built for the African bush. It's a wild thought, right? Today, we're going to compare the ancient lifestyle of our hunter-gatherer ancestors with the incredibly grueling modern corporate grind. We're going to see if we can actually cure modern burnout by looking deep into our past.
Okay, let's dive into this. 300,000. That is a massive number. For 300,000 years, literally every single human being lived without a boss, without paying rent, and definitely without annual performance reviews. The vast majority of our entire evolutionary history was spent in small, egalitarian bands where, honestly, almost every day was essentially a weekend. The 9-to-5 grind, we just invented that.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to quickly cover the slow modern ache, the 15-hour work week, conversation as our operating system, trust and shared success, the biology of rest, and finally, rewilding the modern office.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the slow modern ache, and the evolutionary mismatch.
So here's the core issue at play here. Our biology is entirely out of sync with our environment. We're trying to thrive under harsh fluorescent lights and in digital isolation using bodies that evolved for constant sunlight and immediate tight-knit community. Back in the late 1960s, anthropologists actually started calling early humans the original affluent society. Now, they didn't have material wealth, obviously, but they had an absolute abundance of time for community and play. We traded that free time for what we can call the slow modern ache. Basically endlessly worrying about mortgages and isolating ourselves just to gain material security.
You literally inherited their bodies. Now, don't get me wrong, we made some amazing, undeniable trades for things like vaccines, antibiotics, and indoor plumbing. Nobody is suggesting we go live out in the wild again, but we still have the exact same biological need for sun, sleep, physical touch, and genuinely just doing nothing sometimes. Biologically speaking, we are absolutely still hunter-gatherers. We just stopped doing it.
Moving on to Section 2, the 15-hour work week, where we're redefining productivity.
You probably think surviving out in nature took exhausting, back-breaking labor from dawn to dusk, right? Well, the reality is 15 hours. That's it. Anthropologist Richard Lee actually tracked the Kung Bushmen of the Kalahari and found that they completed all of their survival chores, we're talking hunting, gathering, cooking, the whole shebang, in just 15 hours a week. To put that into perspective, that's only about 2.5 hours a day. Most modern office workers hit that workload before their Tuesday lunch break.
Section 3, Conversation as Operating System. Let's look at feedback and culture.
So Bushmen spent hours every single day just in casual conversation. But you have to understand, this isn't trivial water cooler gossip. This is the highly sophisticated operating system of their entire camp. To really get this, look at a famous story involving Richard Lee. He wanted to thank the Kung tribe for hosting him, so he went out and bought the biggest, fattest ox he could find for a Christmas feast. A great gift, right? But for weeks, the Kung relentlessly made fun of it. They called it skinny, old, and terrible. Lee was totally confused. Why on earth would they mock such a great gift?
Well, it comes down to drastically different models of feedback. In a modern office, praise tends to breed ego, the whole employee of the month thing. But the Kung, they use mockery as a very deliberate, tiny tool to keep people humble. The bigger the kill a successful hunter brings home, the harder the tribe mocks it. It completely prevents arrogance and maintains absolute equality within the group.
They also resolve conflicts by simply voting with their feet. When a fierce dispute flares up, the angry parties just pack up their things and walk to another camp for a few weeks to cool off. The physical space completely diffuses the tension. Today, because we're chained to a desk by strict corporate contracts and hefty mortgages, that ancient, completely natural pressure release valve is just gone.
This brings us to Section 4, Trust and Shared Success, and the idea of social arithmetic.
So how did these tribes build such bulletproof trust and cooperation without HR departments or forced team-building exercises? Well, while hunting is dramatic and gets all the glory, it's actually highly unpredictable. The real unsung heroes of human survival are female gatherers, specifically grandmothers. Women in their 50s and 60s provided the most steady, reliable calories day in and day out, especially when the hunters came up empty-handed. This incredibly reliable foundation of support is the real evolutionary secret to team success.
And it was this reliability that fueled deep, undeniable tribal trust.
For them, sharing a large kill wasn't just a nice thing to do, it was a mandatory rule. Keeping track of who gave what to whom, this complex social arithmetic actually helped evolve the human brain. Your generosity was quite literally your savings account. Plus, children didn't learn in segregated, isolated training rooms like we do today. They learned seamlessly in mixed-age peer groups, just watching, copying, and playing at the work adults were doing right beside them.
Section 5. The biology of rest. Time to start listening to the clock.
Our natural 24-hour biological rhythm is completely clashing with the modern expectation of 8 uninterrupted hours of workflow. Just look at a typical day for the Hadza tribe. Sunrise is for planning, mid-morning is for hunting, but the midday pause, that is absolutely sacred. The intense heat of the day literally forces everyone to stop working, take a nap, sit in the shade, and physically bond. The middle of the day is strictly for the body to recover. To survive modern burnout, we really have to start modeling our office routines around these ancient biological rest cycles.
Finally, Section 6. Rewilding the modern office. Let's get into some practical applications.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is how do we translate all this anthropology into an actionable toolkit for today? If you lead a team, you can restructure your corporate culture using these tribal models. First, treat open conversation as your actual operating system, not just a distraction. Second, flatten egos through honest, direct feedback so success doesn't breed toxic arrogance. Third, respect biological rest and just kill the expectation of continuous robotic output. And fourth, allow genuine space and flexibility for conflicts to naturally cool off.
On a daily basis, you can introduce concrete micro-habits. Encourage mixed-age mentorship to break down rigid seniority, which perfectly mimics that organic tribal learning we talked about. Enforce short, effective, midday disconnect cycles to protect your team's biological rhythms. Think like a mandatory 5-minute breathing routine or physical stretching away from screens, just to reset the nervous system. Finally, create regular, shared, coming-together rituals, like communal team meals. This builds immense social belonging and defeats the total isolation of the sad desk lunch.
Look, we traded the open bush for the open plan office, but we brought our ancient bodies right along with us. We are, biologically speaking, still hunter-gatherers. Our fundamental human need for trust, equality, natural rhythm, and proper rest hasn't changed a bit in 300,000 years. So, knowing what you know now about human nature, how is your tribe going to work tomorrow? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.